Here are four comics that I bought today at my local comic shop, May 20th, 2026. Normally, I would uh, do separate reviews of comics, although I haven't done a lot of comics reviews in a while. But I decided I might as well just do them all in one video. So these are the four comics that came out today that I bought. And there you can see there's one Marvel comic, two DC comics, and one indie comic. So one of the things I want to mention is that a lot of times people will say, uh, I want to be able to pick up a comic without having to understand everything that's going on. Well, the funny thing is all of these comics, you can do just that. You don't have to really know too much. They're either brand new comics, as in the case of the Zorro comic, or they're on like their third issue of their storyline. So the previous two issues should probably still even be on the new release shelf at your local comic shop. You just pick up the three issues and you're all set. You're on your way. So let's start with Zorro. I picked this up on a whim. It's number 1 of 3, and it's published by Alien Books, written by Howard Chaykin and drawn by George Fornes, whose art I really like. I'd seen it on Batman comics, and he has a style. He didn't draw the cover, but he has a style that's very much reminiscent of like David Mazzucchelli, like during the Batman Year One period, and also sort of like, especially with Zorro, it's kind of reminiscent of Alex Toth's Zorro back in the 1950s. So I'm not sure if I am going to get issue number 2 of this 3-issue series. I love the art, but for some reason it just didn't really grab me. At times I felt like Howard Chaykin's writing didn't really match up with the artwork in a way. It kind of felt clunky. So I wasn't that impressed by the writing. Anyway, I don't want to show the whole comic, obviously, but you can tell the sort of Alex Toth influence there, not even with the sound effects, but of course, just with the way Zorro's drawn. But if you're looking for a traditional style Zorro, this would be your thing. It is $4.99. There is a little preview at the back of a modern day Zorro series. It looks like Zorro's Legacy. We're drawn by Aaron Leprestri, and it has a little more of a modern style to it. And then at the end, it looks like he's in the modern world being attacked by a gang. So somehow he's gone into the future, or our president looks like. Anyways, and then there's this illo on the back. So this is Zorro number 1. Like I said, it's okay, but I don't think I'm going to get issue number 2 at $5 a pop. There are other comics I can get instead that I'll get more satisfaction out of it. I'm glad I bought it though, just to try it. There's also, I believe, a Tarzan comic that's going to be coming out from Alien Books. So that's something to check out if you're interested in those old-time pulp characters. All right, now this is sort of the order that I read them, although I did not read this facsimile edition of Silver Surfer 3 yet. But I did read the other two, the two DC comics here. This is Batwoman number 3. Now, this is a case sort of the opposite of Zorro, where the artwork and the writing very much go hand in hand, I think. The artwork is very impressive, whereas George Fornes reminded me of David Mazzucchelli on Batman Year One. Danny's art, she's a Greek artist, has an art style that's reminiscent of Frank Miller, sort of like early 90s Sin City era Frank Miller in a way. It kind of has a scratchy style, but it's very stylized, but it's impressive to me. It has a real energy to it. She is able to say a lot with just very few lines. Look at that. That's, very, very cool. Very stylized. Now, the thing is, with Batwoman, I'm not actually, I don't think I'd ever really read a Batwoman comic before. These are the previous 2 issues, issue number 1 and 2. There was a free comic book day preview, that came out that your shop may still even have for free if you want to try it. But it was sort of previewed at the back of, I think, of some of the other comics. And I wasn't, when I first got this, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep getting it, but the art style just kind of sucked me in. And it's written by Greg Rucka, who's a quality writer. And so then I bought issue number 2, and I liked that as well. You know, it still has that same thing. Now, the thing is with Batwoman, the character is apparently like in this mental institution, and I guess this is her father, and he's trying to prevent her from doing something bad, and she's going around killing people. So that's the thing. She's apparently gone crazy and is executing people in the street. So then you have Renee Montoya, the Question, show up. Although she's featured heavily on the cover, the Question doesn't actually show up till near the end of the issue. In fact, the last 3 pages of the issue. This is another impressive. This is like one of the bad guys. Beginning how it goes across this way, you know, the artwork, and then you go down. And it's a kind of brutal thing, you know, Batwoman, even though she's, you know, killing people, she's also getting, you know, this person takes a crossbow and, you know, like shoots at her face and knocking off like one of her, half of her mask. And it looks really, you know, crazy. But the art is so stylized and cool. So even though I'm not a Batwoman fan, I've never read a Batwoman comic before this current series, I've never seen the TV show, don't really know, you know, totally what's going on because I don't have any back history with this character. I'm still able to follow it, still able to enjoy it, and just going along for the ride. This is kind of, like I said, if you wanted to read like a Frank Miller Bat comic, you know, this would be kind of what you're looking for. And it is only $3.99 per issue, so only $4. And you know, obviously, if you want, you could always wait till they show up in the dollar bins, but they definitely worth it. I think I'm enjoying following this for now. You know, if there's a creative team change, then as far as I know, this is an ongoing series. You know, in fact, that reminds me, there is a thing at the back here in one of these comics. Maybe it was in Superman Unlimited. Here it is. Sort of promoting DC's line of comics as part of the All In initiative. And this is an impressive lineup. How many comics are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 comics. And these are sort of like their main ongoing series. Even though Batwoman is, I believe, an ongoing, which just started, it's not included in here. But I'm following maybe about 5 of these. I'm buying Batman, Detective, Green Lantern Corps, Superman Unlimited, Supergirl, and that's it. But I do occasionally pick up some of the others, like Action Comics, Green Lantern stuff, when I see them in the cheap bins. But others, I've heard people say good things about Wonder Woman. I've heard people say good things about Superman. I was following Catwoman for a while until there was an artist change, and I stopped. But this is an impressive lineup. I think there's more interesting things happening in this lineup than there is in pretty much any other publisher right now of this many titles. You know, this is a quality thing. You know, even if you may, you know, certain titles may not be up your line, like Nightwing. I don't think I've ever bought Nightwing, but I've seen previews of the art, and it looks, Dennis Cowan is drawing it right now, and you know, so it's, I know it has its fans, and it seems to be a solid. That's I guess the right word, a solid line right now. All right, so now we go to Superman Unlimited, totally different. This is, again, let me get out some of the previous 3 issues. If you wanted to start reading Superman Unlimited, even though this is issue number 11, it says the future of John Kent starts here. A lot of DC titles had this banner across the top as sort of a jumping on point. And this was the reign of the Superboys jumping on point. The Superman after the events of DC KO, which you don't have to have read, I have not read, has disappeared. So now the main Superman titles are focusing on some of the Superman-related characters. And Superman Unlimited, written by Dan Slott, is focusing right now on John Kent. So John Kent was Superman's son, who was, a little boy, but then was aged up by Brian Michael Bendis at some point, and he became an adult and took over the name of Superman. He was John Kent, a son of Superman. Um, but then when Superman came back at one point, he was still called Superman, but he was not, the main Superman anymore. Um, but in this little 3-issue series so far, this Reign of Superboys arc, um, the John Kent, the adult John Kent, has brought the original, the young Superboy back from where he was. Well, it's hard to show the exact panel in here. I can't find it. But so then to distinguish between the two, and he doesn't want to change history, he has taken on covered his face so people don't recognize he's John Kent, and has called himself Tomorrow Man. So he's basically trying to save the horrible. He was like in another dimension being tortured for years until he finally came out as an adult. So he's trying to prevent that. So now John Kent has his childhood back again. Now the thing is, all may not be as it seems, because people are saying, "Oh, he brought back the young John Kent," which a lot of fans wanted. But I think that there's, Dan Slott may be sort of playing with readers here that this may not actually be John Kent. The little boy John Kent returned from the past. The art in this story arc is really cool. It's drawn by Lucas Meyer, and it has a very solid, classic-looking art style. If you're one of those people who are like, "Oh, I don't like scratchy-looking art or overly stylized art," his art is it's sort of like a Dan Jurgens type of thing, where it's very dynamic, but it's also very solid, traditional-looking artwork. It's drawn correctly. If you're looking for something that is sort of like a post-crisis, late 1980s, 1990s Superman comic to follow, and you don't want to have to follow a lot of continuity, you want to follow stories that are sort of complete in one issue almost. Even though there'll be like the sort of ongoing Reign of the Superboys subplot, you get pretty much a beginning, middle, and end in this story. And this is sort of continued from the previous issue, where Beppo the Super Monkey is sort of introduced, and he meets Bibbo, who was a character introduced in the post-crisis Superman stories. And Crypto is in the story, Lois Lane is in the story, and anyways, so at the end of it, here's another little ad for the All In Act 2. At the end of it, and the cool thing about the Superman titles is also that they have these information pages that are sort of like bullpen bulletins about the Superman titles. And here it's showing Tomorrow Man, like costume designs for him. Who knows how long this is actually going to last, where he's going to be Tomorrow Man. But anyway, so Beppo the Super Monkey is part of continuity now, and he's a superpowered monkey. Anyways, it's it's unlike, say, Batwoman, it's more of a traditional type fun, don't have to think about it. It's not like quote unquote a work of art or anything like that. It's just like a good, solid, fun Superman comic. Even though Superman himself is not in it, it's the Superman related characters, his supporting characters, and so forth. I am unexpectedly enjoying Superman Unlimited. I didn't start buying it. I think I bought issue number 4, and then I didn't buy another until issue like number 8 or so, maybe 9 or 10, something like that. And then finally, it's like, okay, now with this new story arc, I'm just going to buy it every month, and I'm enjoying it. Finally, I did not read this comic yet. It's Silver Surfer Facsimile Edition number 3. I've not read it. I was just going to mention something about it, though. Again, this is a case where, if you want, you can get the facsimile of issue number 1, issue number 2. They're going to be releasing facsimiles of the first 7 issues, which were these thicker issues. In fact, you can see it's sort of square bound. They're $6.99 each. That's what the back cover looks like. From the late 60s, like 1969, 1970, around there. And these were written by Stan Lee, and they were written by John Buscema, and they were sort of like Stan Lee's crowning achievement as far as I think he considered it, because it gave him a chance to have a character who was sort of waxing poetic as he, went across the skies about man's inhumanity to man and all that sort of thing. One of the problems, though, with these facsimile editions, and I've been careful not to read it just yet, is that I've found the ink can really kind of, like the moisture on your hands, can cause smearing. See this smearing right there? That smudge that's right there? My fingerprint? That's because I read the comic. I, went and read through the issue. This was issue number 1, came out a couple months ago. And then later when I was done, I was like, hey, I got a smudge on it just from reading it. The ink is so like fresh or whatever. So then now I put it in this bag and board because I don't want to cause any more damage to it. So then when I got issue number 2, I was like, I got to be careful. So I read this one, and it started, you know what? I think there's another little smudge right there, which I didn't really even notice till now. There's a smudge. And I kept looking at the back cover as I was reading it. There's like a little smudge there that I've made. And I was like, well, at least I didn't make it like a major smudge. But, I was like, man, oh man. So I'm going to have to wear gloves when I read these comics. They're really cool. They're on glossy paper and stuff. Some people don't like that, but I think if you're paying $7 for a comic, I think it's worth it. You do get the ads and the letter pages and so on. So now I got issue number 3. Hopefully I don't make any smudges. This is the first appearance of Mephisto. And like I said, there's the back cover. So far unsmudged. But like I said, when I read through it, I got to be extra careful. And, I already actually have the Marvel Masterworks volume reprinting these stories. But except they have these facsimile editions have the Tales of the Watcher backup stories, which aren't in the Silver Surfer Marvel Masterworks. This sort of picks up from the previous issue number 2, where he had rescued this girl, but then everybody thinks he's a monster who caused her pain. It's sort of the contradiction in a lot of these Marvel comics of this period is that certain people are considered menaces, whereas other people are considered upstanding heroes. So if you're a member of the Fantastic Four and you're the Human Torch and you're literally on fire, you're admired. You're giving speeches to high school students, and so forth. But you could be just some guy with a silver guy with a surfboard, and you're being attacked by the cops, and so on, even though you're basically just a naked guy walking around. So it's sort of contradictory. If he had joined the Fantastic Four, would he be treated this way? If if the Silver Surfer had joined the Avengers, he would be considered a, upstanding hero. As a famous splash of showing Mephisto. But anyways, so that sort of thing, it's sort of, you feel manipulated in a way by the writing, because it's like, yeah, we're going to make everybody hate him, even though there's really no reason for them to hate him. And then you have this Gene Colan backup story, Tales of the Watcher, which is just a rewritten version of an old pre-Marvel, like amazing adult fantasy 5-pager, but now extended to like 10 pages or so. And then at the end, you have the letter page. I don't think the previous 2 issues had letter pages. And then these have sort of reactions to Silver Surfer number 1. Now, the funny thing is there were some people who weren't that happy about it, which I was a little surprised at. Because usually you would think that you would get a lot of praise for it is considered one of Stan Lee's, crowning achievements. But the first issue of Silver Surfer added an origin story for him, which he didn't have before. He was Norrin Rad. He, had a love interest on this other planet. Whereas previously it had been sort of assumed that he was a created being. He wasn't like a transformed humanoid. you have one funny letter here. Well, there's one from Tony Isabella, who later became, a writer, creator of Black Lightning. But then there's another funny one with this letter here, where the person's saying the Silver Surfer #1 was the worst Marvel published in years. And the artwork was bad, and the person ends by saying, "Replace John B. with Kirby. Write Surfer a new origin, or I won't buy #2." So this person much preferred the Kirby version of Surfer that was appearing in Fantastic Four. Anyways, I've not read this one yet. I'm gonna have to get my gloves on to read it, and hopefully not do any more damage. Anyways, that's a warning though for you too. If you're reading these facsimile editions, watch out for unintended smudges. Well, that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and go to your local comic shop, check it out. Even if you end up don't buying anything, maybe check the dollar bins. They might have some recent comics in there for cheap, and then you can get a sense of what's going on. Some people don't follow current comics, because of the price, but like I said, there are discounted comics there. If you want cheap comics, the best place to get them is a comic shop, and so check it out. What have you got to lose? Thanks for watching.